what got you into playing music, like, all the way back to when you
Oh,
started to love it?
uh, the soundtrack for Bambi.
Oh, wow, that's a deep cut, okay.
Oh, that's a yeah, deep cut. That's why I always say, like, when I think that was one of the first albums that I understood. But I grew up in a house that though neither of my parents were professional musicians, they were very active in music and playing music. I think I chose to play guitar because my dad played guitar, and so I wanted to be like him. So I chose the guitar, and he was a very what I call kind of folk guitarist, very basic chords and stuff. But he was really into it, and so that was the first guitar that I would have had access to. And I remember asking for my own first guitar when I was 10 and plugging in into um so I'm laughing because I'm guessing this is something you haven't grown up with, or your older viewers will know. A Zenith console. It was like this huge piece of furniture that looked like like an oak cabinet or something. You opened it up and there was a turntable inside with
Oh,
speakers on the side. And so I would plug that guitar into the stereo system somehow. I don't even remember how I did it, but then we kind of experiment with the sounds, and then started learning to play really by putting a Rolling Stones record on and playing along with the Rolling Stones record and realizing, oh my gosh, I'm playing the same notes as Keith Richards. And so at first I tried to copy the notes, and then I realized, oh, well, I can play this note and it still sounds good. It's not exactly what he's playing, but it's in the same world. I didn't understand keys or anything like that. But that's kind of how that got started. And then I studied classical guitar in college. And when I got done with that, I ended up going back to the electric guitar, playing in various bands. This is back in Indiana and Ohio. And so I was in groups that were kind of jazz rock fusion. I was in a group that played primarily music from the Motown era. I was in a group that played all original music that was sort of a, I guess, I don't know if you're familiar with Tears for Fears. They've actually come out with a new album right lately.
mhm.
It's kind of like sort of Tears for Fears, all original music. I was starting to kind of teach myself some other types of instrumental guitar stuff and composing tunes. And by the time I moved out here to Montana in 1993, I kind of had a vision of like, I think I'm going to go with a steel string acoustic guitar and try to develop something with that. And I knew enough to know that I would get more work if I would sing. So I could sing okay. So I thought, oh, I'll do this. And so I kind of combined the two. And as the years have gone on, it's still kind of a combination of those two things of instrumental music and vocal music.
So cool, what brought you out to Montana back then?
Well, I got my degree in something called music therapy. And
Mhm.
ironically, there's a woman that I did an internship with who lives in Kalispell, who no longer is a music therapist, but it was kind of ironic that I moved out here and then found out that she was out here too as well. And she lives here with her family. But we did that internship in Denver, Colorado, and that was my first introduction into the Rocky Mountain area. And so I always was it always stuck with me. And then I moved back to Cleveland and lived there for a while. And then when I met my former wife, we started traveling here just for vacations, like a lot of people. And it really got into our psyche and our soul. And we decided, I think we could start a life out here.
I wanted to ask a little bit about your work with Montana Public Radio
Mhm.
and, Montana PBS. How did you get involved with them?
Well, 1997. So I've been here about 4 years, and I'd started playing a lot of solo gigs and recording albums and stuff. And the gentleman who's now the program director of the station is a guy named Michael Marsalic, and he had started the program that I've been hosting now myself for 27 years, and that's called Musician Spotlight. He had started that program, and he was going to be moving on to bigger and better things, as I was soon to find out, including being the program director. And so he asked if I wanted to pick up the show and continue to do the show. And so I did, along with a co-host at the time, a guy named Brian Copper, and we were co-hosts of that for a little over a decade. And around 2008 or 2009 is when I started hosting it just by myself. And it's been an incredible journey. I would not have thought it was going to be something that became so much a part of my life. I didn't I didn't have any aspirations to be a journalist. And it's funny because somebody who was on the show recently said, well, John, you as a journalist would say, and I'm like, well, I'm not a journalist. I'm just a musician who can talk to other musicians and put it into a software program and edit it and put it out. And it's good enough for broadcast, but I had no aspirations to do any of that kind of stuff. It just kind of fell into my lap. And that became something I took a lot of pride in and had a lot of fun with. And it's been fabulous. It's incredible conversations I've had. I can't remember the total number of folks that I've interviewed is, I want to say it's like 600 people or something like that over that time. It's pretty astounding. And a lot of them are household names like B.B. King and Alison Krauss, Bonnie Raitt. I mean, all kinds of folks. But then there's also, we have interviewed musicians from the Flathead, off the top of my head, Mike Murray, John Dunnigan, Erica Von Kleist. I know I'm just going to stop there because I'll start, leaving people out, but it's all kinds of musicians. And so everybody's got a story as to what brought them. So I'm usually doing the other thing that you're doing here, is asking them, what brought you to music? What were your inspirations and that kind of stuff. And everyone's got an interesting story to me. So my job is to convey that story to people. And then the PBS thing came about through the pandemic, actually. And that's why I got a camcorder and set up a microphone in here, was because I would do this and I would be the host, and we would get music videos from around the state from all kinds of musicians. And then I was like the host in between. It was sort of similar to back when MTV actually played music videos, and that's where you'd go to see music videos. You'd watch a couple videos, and then some guy would be there, or some woman would be there and tell you what you'd just seen and tell you a little bit more about it. So we did that from the pandemic, or kind of from the shutdown on, because musicians weren't working, obviously. We weren't to be in public. And so we were looking for an avenue to keep musicians motivated and get their music and get their work out, and also for people, and not just for musicians, but for people who love music and are interested in what's going on in the state. So yeah, we did that we did a total of I think 8 shows maybe that are on PBS, and they're available on the website and stuff. So I'm not sure where that's going to go in the future, but that was, if that's it, that was great. That was a lot of fun. It was another way to kind of serve the community and Montana musicians as well.
Tell me about your new album coming out.
Yeah, now that album does rock a little bit.
Okay.
It's 7 new tracks, and it was recorded here in Missoula, and it's myself on acoustic and electric guitars and vocals and mandolin, and then my partner plays cello, and she's recorded on that as well. And also drummer Travis, I should say Jennifer Sladen on cello, Travis Yost on bass, and Ed Stalling on drums. So it's like a group, and it's a full group sound, but it's a little different. Certainly the cello brings an element to the music that is very unique. And I mean, there are definitely more, you're hearing more cello around these days in popular music, I think, than certainly when I was growing up, but it's still cool. And it definitely brings a whole other flavor to what we're doing. And the album's called Thankful. And there's, of those 7 tracks, 6 of them are my own songs. And one of them is a version of a song called Take Me to the River, which is originally written by Al Green, the famous R&B soul singer. And then it was also made famous by the Talking Heads. So it's a well-known tune. And you get to hear Jennifer do some stuff on the cello you don't necessarily ever hear a cello do, which brings a real nice energy to that. And in terms of the lyrical content, the subtitle of the album is called Songs of a Certain Age, which I thought was very clever.
Yeah.
obviously. Meaning they're songs that I wrote as a middle-aged man. They're reflections of life and things that were happening to me in the last 15 years or so, and decade and change, we'll say. And so those things are going to be different than what I was writing about in my 20s and 30s. And in some ways not. So reflections on relationships and reflections on life choices, that kind of thing. But I'm real proud of it. And I'm working on a couple other projects of just me and my guitar, more singer-songwriter type albums that I may just do digitally at first. So I've got that. I'm actually trying to finish up something here in the next few days that could be available on Bandcamp, which is where
Okay.
independent artists can put music up there. And those are songs actually that are more autumnal and in flavor. So maybe at some point I'll have all the seasons covered with different recordings.
Hey, John, thanks for joining us. Really looking forward to your press play show. So
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.